Yeah, they get the idea. They know why they clicked on this video. So, you're easily offended. You have paper skin. And everything that you disagree with that somebody says, you cannot stand. Everything out of pocket, everything that you find unbearable, somebody bears it every day. Offended means being hurt by somebody's words or actions, but not physically. It's not like somebody stabbed you. Being offended is like somebody having the idea that the 2020 election was robbed, and that offends you, or that all politicians are bought and paid for. Ideas like that somebody might get offended by, aka hurt by. Why does this happen? It happens because our namby-pamby baby bitch little world decided that at some point we're gonna reward people just for showing up. And when it decided this, it didn't realize that it also decided that now it's going to create a whole new generation of humans. Because they can get rewarded just for showing up. They feel entitled that their opinion is always important and relevant, especially in matters that are way bigger than themselves. 3 groups of people who claim to be triggered more than any other people groups are: number 1, male feminists / simps. Number 2, pink-haired liberal women. And number 3, politicians. Male feminists and simps, they don't really care that much. They will get offended for the sole purpose of trying to get some pussy, some pity pussy from the white liberal women. And what they don't realize is that even white liberal women find this behavior to be, at best, desperate. If she thinks that you agree with her, that's not gonna make her want to fuck you, which simps don't understand. So then they empty their bank accounts, and then women still don't want to fuck them. And then they're just confused, because they're like, well, I agree with her, and I give her money, what's the problem? That's a whole topic for another video, what women actually like. The point is that simps act offended to try and get some. That's group number 1. Group number 2, which most of you are familiar with, pink-haired liberal women, typically Caucasian, because only in America do women have the audacity to make some of the statements that these women be making. What statements, you might ask? Well, I am glad you asked. Statements like, women are property and eugenics is a good thing, triggers these white liberal statements like racism was a good thing and slavery was not perpetrated on the base of race will make liberal white women explode. A statement like men should get paid higher because they do more dangerous and difficult jobs. What they don't understand is the nuance in that statement. The men who do more difficult and dangerous jobs should get paid more. Not men should get paid more. It's never been on the basis of gender. It's been on the basis of what men do that differentiates them from women. Some women don't seem to understand. And the final group, which probably none of you expected, politicians. You're like, Danzig, what are you talking about? Politicians don't get offended. And I'd say you're right. They don't get offended, they just act offended. Because when you act offended, it can often benefit your cause. If your primary voter base is liberal white women and simps, then all you have to do is just agree with whatever they say or put down people who say the opposite of what liberal white women and male simps think, and then boom, you got like a bunch of voters. Politicians, pretty self-explanatory. The best actors don't live in Hollywood. If you've made it this far in the video, you don't get triggered easily, so congratulations. But for the people who do get triggered easily, that have made it this far, I'm going to give you some steps to show you how to cure that. But first, I'm going to tell you why you should cure that. Number one, thick skin is great on cold days like this. And I mean that metaphorically. What I mean is, a lot of people in this day and age, with our high level of consciousness, think that love and respect and positive emotions are the normal for friendships and relationships of any kind. And I personally, I don't like to accept anything other than that. But what I try to remind myself is that that is not the majority of the world. The majority of the progress that we have has been built on negative emotions and negativity. So I try to see negativity in a little more positive light. It's not always a bad thing because it got us this far. So building up thick skin to be able to take the negativity and turn it into something productive is almost always a good thing. Two, people will just like you more. Picture this. Have you ever been in a situation where you're at a party and you crack a joke, dark humor joke, and it's pretty funny and people start laughing? And then there's one girl and she goes, "Well, actually, that was rather rude, and I didn't think it was that funny. Because when I was 9 years old, my cousin Caleb, he told me that race is..." Shut up, bitch. Nobody cares, Michaela. The point is, that person right there, they can't realize that a joke is a joke. They take this so seriously that they can't have fun, even when the environment, everybody around them clearly knows that this person is not a racist. They're just trying to have fun and make a lighthearted joke. If you got a problem with that, you got thin skin. So people just like you more because nobody likes a person who's gonna bitch and complain at every joke that's not PC. Third, and arguably most important, is that you're harder to control when you have thicker skin. Think about it. Every group that I mentioned before, they are being controlled whether they realize it or not, in some way, shape, or form. Want sex, liberals want Big Brother, and politicians want small children. The better you can control your emotions and attitudes, not control your emotions, but the better you can control your actions so that they are not emotional, impulsive actions, the better. Quick, before I give these last 3 tips on how to get thick skin, most people think that having thick skin is just repressing and not acknowledging the emotions, which is not true. Thick skin is being able to acknowledge the emotion without acting upon the emotion. You see, you can still acknowledge it without having to have an outburst. You can acknowledge that a joke made you feel a little funny without having to go on a 10-minute rant about how that joke was inappropriate. It's 2 different things, you see? Made you feel a little weird? Go hang around some different people who don't make jokes like that. It's not that complicated. What you don't need to do is try and change those people from making the jokes that they like making and laugh at, because that's not fair to them. Finally, how to get thick skin. Step number 1, seek peaceful disagreements. This is the opposite of what liberal white women do, and I know that I'm harping on them, but they're just a prime example of getting triggered. Peaceful disagreements. What is a peaceful disagreement? A peaceful disagreement is saying, "Oh, you think this? What makes you think that?" And then you listen to what they have to say, and you don't interrupt them. You wait for them to finish speaking. Then once they're finished speaking, you say, "Oh, I've never heard that before. Where did you hear this?" And you rinse and repeat this. And you'll come to one of 3 conclusions of the conversation. One will be, when you bombard them with questions, they will have no basis for their thinking. So they will just start trying to emotionally attack you. And if they do that, you know that it's not that they logically think something different than you. It's that somebody else charged them emotionally to think this way. So you know that, okay, well, there's nothing I can learn here, so I should just move on. Second type of way this conversation can go is that after asking all these questions, you now have an understanding of where this person comes from. And you can go, oh yes, I see you heard this from that, and that makes sense. I can see why you would think this way. But then you add in, I heard this from this place, and that is why I think this way. And that, in essence, is a peaceful disagreement, because you both heard things that oppose each other, but you're not going to change what you think because you heard this piece of information first. Now, is that biased? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, humans are biased, and no amount of peaceful disagreements are going to change that. The third is basically the opposite of the first way, is that you don't ask these questions, or when they bring up the logic and relevant points of why they think the way they do, instead of being able to counter with your own logical points and information about why you think what you think, you shut down and you start making fun of them for thinking that way. We could go into how some sources are just propaganda and others are actual real information, but that is the basic gist of the peaceful disagreement. Step number 2 is to grow up anytime before 1990. This is alluding what I went back to earlier. At some point, we just started to change the way we raise children. And we went from, no, you have to earn this to deserve it, to you deserve it, simply on the fact that you exist. This has corrupted a whole generation of people, untold millions of Americans. It's called entitlementitis, and it is running rampant. That's what some parents don't realize, is that giving your kid everything ultimately is destroying their future, because you're teaching them if they whine and beg and plead enough, they can get anything they want, which is the opposite of how the real world works. The real world, you beg and plead and cry, and the world will go, that's funny, but you're not getting that, bud. So, raise your kids right, man. Finally, tip number 3 to get thick skin: realize that nobody cares about you. When you realize that outside the internet, in real life, if I collapse right now while I'm walking and I was not in front of a window where my parents are, there's a highway right in front of my house. Nobody on that highway would stop what they're doing in their day just to check on me. They don't care. They don't care. Real talk. Unless you are a young, attractive, and female, or a child. I'm talking specifically to men here. The world does not care about a man. The man's got to figure it out. If you're a child, if you're a woman, if you're the elderly, it's a little different. Y'all get on the boats first if it's the Titanic. When shit goes bad, y'all are the first to get taken care of. But most men don't realize nobody cares. Nobody's coming to save you. Nobody's going to stop you from doing what you do on a daily basis because it's hurting you and it's killing you. Nobody's going to protect you when the shit gets hard. You are alone in this world, my brother. When your parents pass, when your grandparents pass, it's you. It's all you. And you got to be the one to step up and to do the things that our ancestors have been doing this whole time. All the great stories you've heard about all these great men that you've never met, you got to do what they've been doing for generations and generations to get us this far. And still, after doing great things like being an active father and having a strong career and being a strong man, still nobody's going to care. And that's just kind of how it goes. But that has its own distinct benefit. When nobody cares, you're able to not care. You're able to care less about what other people think of you because they don't know what you've been through. Their little comment about how you're not a real man, that you are unfazed by that because you know just how much shit you had to crawl through to get to where you're at in this point in your life. Even if you really got nothing to show for it, they can still hammer you down. But if you're a real man, you know in your heart whether you've been trying your hardest or not. And you can stand on that. That's a real firm foundation. Nobody can take that away from you. Your trust in yourself, nobody can take that away from you. Nobody. The only person who can take that away from you is yourself. Because when you start to disrespect yourself and to go against what you say you're going to do, that's when you stop respecting yourself. You stop trusting yourself. And then you take away the only thing that really matters, which is how you feel about you. And ultimately, we're coming full circle here. If you respect yourself and you care about yourself and you don't care what other people, then you just don't care what other people think about you, because you know that you love you and you have intrinsic morals, and if you live to align with them, then you love yourself. And when you love yourself, it doesn't matter how many people say that they don't love you, because you love you. And nobody can take that away.